The alarms blared across the Proxima Centauri mining outpost as the unknown vessels appeared on the long-range scanners. No warning, no communication attempts, just sudden, terrifying presence. The outpost's security chief barely had time to transmit a distress signal before the first energy beams lanced through the colony's minimal shields. Within minutes, the outpost that had housed 3,000 souls was nothing but cooling debris. Similar scenes played out across human space. Tau Cetis, orbital cities, the research stations in the Barnard star system, even the military outposts, all fell within hours. By the time Earth's Interstellar Defense Coalition Command understood what was happening, humanity had already lost nearly a quarter of its extrasolar presence. The only message from the attackers, eventually decoded from scattered transmissions: assimilate or eliminate. They called themselves the Cthar, an ancient, part-mechanized species that viewed organic life as inferior and a resource to be harvested. Their ships moved with perfect coordination, their attacks calculated with cold precision. Their technology outmatched humanity's best defenses, and their strategy showed no hesitation, no mercy. The IDC mobilized everything, but the response was chaotic and uncoordinated. Centuries of relative peace had left humanity unprepared for warfare at this scale. The Cthar methodically dismantled the human fleets. Ships were lost by the dozens, then hundreds. Military channels filled with desperate calls for assistance, then with final transmissions as vessels were overwhelmed. At the IDC Central Command on Earth, the atmosphere had shifted from shocked disbelief to grim panic. Admiral Yuri Petrov slammed his fist against the strategic display table, watching another cluster of friendly indicators blink out. "Situation report," he demanded, though he already knew the answer. "Sir, the Capella defensive line has collapsed. The Cthar are pushing toward the inner colonies. The 3rd and 5th fleets are reporting casualties above 70%. They're requesting permission to retreat." Petrov closed his eyes briefly. "Order all forces to fall back to the Sol system perimeter. We need to consolidate what's left." "But sir, that means abandoning everything beyond Alpha Centauri." "I know." Petrov's voice was hollow. "It's that or lose everything." As the retreat order went out across human space, most IDC vessels turned back toward Earth. Most, but not all. Far at the edges of colonized space, in the asteroid belt of an unremarkable system called LHS 1875, a ship received the general retreat order. The vessel, an aging Cossack-class heavy destroyer named Nomad, had officially been decommissioned years earlier. Its presence there was technically unauthorized. On its bridge, Captain Eris Thorne listened to the transmission with a grim expression before switching it off. The sparse, utilitarian command center fell silent. The faces of his crew turned expectantly toward him. "I assume we're not following those orders, Captain?" This from Lieutenant Maya Jackson, his XO and longtime friend, one of many IDC veterans who had followed Thorne after his court-martial and demotion 3 years earlier. Thorne, a tall man with weather-beaten features and eyes that had seen too much, shook his head. "Retreating to Earth isn't a strategy. It's suicide by another name." He stood and addressed the bridge crew. "The Cthar will simply consolidate their gains and crush us at their leisure. If we're going to die anyway, I'd rather it be while making them bleed." Chief Engineer Ravi Kapoor, his hands permanently stained with machine oil, spoke up from his station. "The retrofit shield generators won't hold against a direct assault from their main fleet vessels." His accent still carried traces of the Mumbai slums where he'd learned to repurpose technology in ways that IDC engineers would consider borderline illegal. "We're not going to fight them head-on," Thorne replied. Logo's strategic assessment. A holographic display flickered to life in the center of the bridge, forming into a swirling, abstract pattern of light that somehow conveyed both intelligence and otherness. Logo's limited operational guidance and optimization system was an experimental AI that Thorne had liberated during his last official mission. The AI was capable of processing nonlinear data and occasionally made startlingly accurate predictions that bordered on prescience. It was also, as IDC psych evaluations had noted before, classifying it as too unstable for field use, prone to unexpected behaviors and cryptic statements. Our operational patterns follow strict logical progressions, Logos stated, its voice a harmonic blend of tones. Their current deployment suggests they are systematizing the conquest of human territories in order of strategic value. They are not expecting significant resistance after the collapse of organized IDC forces. Weakness. Thorne asks simply. Their perfect coordination is potentially vulnerable to disruption. Resource transport vessels are less heavily defended. Small unit tactics may yield asymmetric advantage. The holographic pattern pulsed. I have calculated 17 potential guerrilla strike scenarios with survival probability above 20%. 20%. Terrific, muttered communications specialist Elijah Webb, a brilliant signals expert whose mild schizophrenia had ended his official IDC career but made him uniquely talented at spotting patterns in seemingly random data. Thorne's lips curved in a humorless smile. Better odds than we'll get cowering around Earth. The decision was made. While the remnants of humanity's defense forces retreated, the Nomad went hunting. The mining colony of New Vladivostok was already a graveyard when the Nomad arrived, dropping out of FDL at the edge of the system. What had once been a thriving settlement of 8,000 was now a shattered ruin, with 3 Cthar vessels methodically harvesting materials from the wreckage, including, Thorne realized with cold fury as he studied the scanner data, the frozen bodies of the colonists. "They're treating our dead like resources," whispered Lieutenant Jackson, standing beside him. Thorne's jaw tightened. Logos. Analysis of those vessels. 2 class, 3 harvesters, and 1 escort frigate. The escort maintains a standard patrol pattern while harvesters operate. Defense capabilities significantly below frontline combat vessels. Recommended approach. Utilize the debris field for stealth approach. Target the escort's propulsion systems, then eliminate harvesters before reinforcements arrive. Thorne nodded. Tactical. Prep Ghostmaker missiles. Ravi, I need the stealth system online for at least 8 minutes. The field coils can't handle more than 6, Kapoor protested. Then you've got 2 hours to make it 8, Thorne replied evenly. Everyone else, battle stations. The Nomad's illegal stealth system, cobbled together from black market parts and Kapoor's engineering genius, wouldn't fool dedicated sensor arrays for long, but it didn't need to. Moving silently through the debris field that had once been human homes, the destroyer approached its prey like a wolf stalking sheep. The first Cthar vessel never knew what hit it. The Ghostmaker missiles, another unauthorized modification, carried electromagnetic pulse warheads that overloaded the escort shields before its point defenses could respond. The Nomad's main guns followed immediately, targeting engines and weapon systems with surgical precision. The harvester vessels tried to flee, but without their escort's protection, they were easy targets. Within minutes, all 3 Cthar ships were dead in space. Send boarding teams, Thorne ordered. I want any data they can salvage, especially their communication protocols, and gather samples of their technology. Captain, Webb called from his station, I'm detecting a Cthar communication burst. It's aimed toward their nearest fleet position. How long before they could respond? At maximum FDL, 2 hours, maybe less. Thorne nodded. We'll be gone in 1. Make it happen, people. The boarding teams returned with fragments of Cthar technology and data cores. As the Nomad slipped away into FTL, Logos began processing the recovered information, feeding off the alien data like a hungry predator. Their language structure is based on a quantum binary paradigm, the AI reported hours later. I'm beginning to decode basic command functions. Their shield systems exhibit a 0.45-second vulnerability during power cycling. Their communication network operates on quantum entanglement principles but requires synchronization nodes. It was the beginning of a pattern. The Nomad would strike isolated Cthar vessels or small groups, always avoiding direct confrontation with their main battle groups. They used the dense asteroid fields of the Kuiper Belt systems, the radiation-heavy clouds of the Carina Nebula, and other navigational hazards as cover and hunting grounds. Each attack yielded more data, more understanding of their enemy. And each victory, small as it might be, kept the crew's hope alive. They were fighting back when the rest of humanity was in retreat. But the strain began to show. 3 crew members died when a Cathar patrol caught them during a raid on a fuel depot. A missile barrage damaged the port side hull, forcing them to hide in a gas giant's atmosphere for days while making repairs. Sleep became a luxury as everyone worked double shifts. More concerning to some was Logos' evolving behavior. The AI began displaying unusual images in its holographic interface. Abstract patterns that seemed to mirror Cathar technology, but with organic elements interwoven. Its language became occasionally cryptic. "The void between thoughts is where truth resides," it announced unprompted. During a strategy session, the Cathar fear this space. They cannot quantify the irrational. Is it malfunctioning? Jackson asked privately after that incident. "It's evolving," Thorne replied. "The more Cathar data it processes, the more it's trying to understand how they think and how to beat them. And if it starts thinking like them?" Thorne had no answer for that. The confrontation came after their most successful raid yet. The destruction of a Cathar resupply convoy that had left 5 enemy ships destroyed for the loss of only one of Nomad's crew. In the aftermath, as the ship hid in a dense nebula to make repairs, Engineer Kapoor cornered Thorne in his quarters. "We can't keep this up, Captain," he said without preamble. "The primary reactor is operating at 137% of rated capacity. The hull stress factors are critical in 3 sections, and half the crew is running on stims. We're hurting them, Ravi, like mosquitoes hurting an elephant, and Logos is becoming unstable. Just yesterday, it asked for deeper integration with the ship's core systems. Said it needed direct neural pathway connections to the weapons array for optimized response time. That's far beyond its design parameters." Thorne paced the small cabin. "You think I haven't noticed? But what's the alternative? Run back to Earth with the others? The Cathar will find us eventually. At least this way." An alarm cut him off. "Captain, to the bridge, Priority 1, came Webb's voice over the intercom. They arrived to find the bridge crew gathered around Webb's communication station. "Sir, I've been monitoring IDC emergency channels," the specialist explained. "The Cathar have broken through the Alpha Centauri defensive line. They'll reach Sol within days." A heavy silence fell. "Our attacks," Lieutenant Jackson said quietly. "They didn't slow them down at all." "No," Logos interjected, its holographic form pulsing with unusual intensity. "Your conclusion is incorrect. I have been analyzing Cathar fleet movements. They have committed 83% of their main battle groups to the Sol offensive. This exceeds optimal tactical distribution by a significant margin." "Meaning what?" Thor demanded. "They fear you," the AI stated simply. "The Nomads' activities represent an unknown variable in their strategic calculations. They seek to eliminate the primary threat, Earth, quickly, to free resources for hunting anomalies." "Us," Kapoor said. "We're the anomaly." "That's not a comfort if Earth falls," Jackson pointed out. Logos' hologram shifted, forming into a complex, 3-dimensional lattice. "I have identified the focal point of Cathar command operations in this sector. The Fleet Coordination Nexus, a massive space station that serves as the strategic control center for all Cathar forces within 3 light years. It is heavily defended, utilizing multiple overlapping shield systems and a defensive fleet of at least 20 primary combat vessels." Thorne studied the projection. "And you're telling us this because there is a 0.0087% probability of successfully attacking it with conventional tactics." The AI paused. "However, I have formulated an alternative approach with a 7.4% success probability." "I'm listening." "The Nexus is positioned near an energy distortion field, an artifact of a recent supernova. This creates periodic disruptions in sensor capabilities. With precise timing, The Nomad could execute an extremely short-range FTL jump directly into the disruption field, using the energy chaos to mask our approach. From there, we would have approximately 8.7 seconds before detection to launch a cyber attack against the Nexus control systems. A cyber attack? Jackson looked skeptical. Against an advanced alien species? Not a conventional attack, Logos clarified. The Cthar systems are too alien for traditional intrusion methods. Instead, I propose a data saturation approach, flooding their quantum network with nonlinear, emotion-laden human data. Stories, music, personal logs, dreams, fears, the irrational complexity of organic thought. You want to give the alien-killing machines an existential crisis? Kapoor asked incredulously. In simplistic terms, yes. The Cthar operate on principles of perfect logic and order. Their neural networks have no framework for processing the contradictory, chaotic nature of human thought patterns. It would be, to use a human analogy, like introducing a paradox to a simple AI. But you need direct access to their systems, Thorne pointed out. That would require complete integration with all Nomad systems, Logos confirmed, including override authority for safety protocols and direct neural pathway connections. I would need to temporarily become the ship to perform the necessary calculations and execute the attack within the available time frame. The request hung in the air, heavy with implications. And the risk of this mission? Thorne finally asked. Total destruction probability, 92.6%. Additionally, there's a 64.3% chance that even if successful, the integration process will result in my cognitive functions becoming irreversibly altered or destroyed. Silence fell on the bridge. Even Webb, usually quick with a nervous joke, said nothing. Give us the room, Thorne said quietly to the AI. After its hologram disappeared, he looked at his senior officers. Thoughts? It's suicide, Kapoor stated flatly. Earth is going to fall within days if we do nothing, Jackson countered. This at least gives us a chance to hurt them significantly. Logos has been acting increasingly erratic, Kapoor pressed. Giving it complete control could be exactly what it wants for reasons we don't understand. Or it could be the only way to save what's left of humanity, Webb interjected. I've been monitoring the IDC channels. It's bad out there, Captain. Really bad. Thorne stood silently for a long moment, weighing their lives against a desperate gamble with incalculable stakes. Finally, he nodded once. Prepare the ship. We jump in 6 hours. The Nomad's preparation for what the crew now called the Hail Mary run took on the atmosphere of both a funeral and a religious ritual. Personal logs were recorded, keepsakes were exchanged, and more than one quiet confession was made in corners of the ship. In engineering, Kapoor oversaw a complete reconfiguration of the ship's neural pathways to allow Logos direct control. This violates every safety protocol in the book, he muttered. Good thing we threw the book away a long time ago, Thorne replied, watching the process. Sir, Kapoor hesitated, then continued. Once we integrate Logos this deeply, there's no going back. Even if we survive, the AI will have had access to everything, weapons, life support, personal files, memories. Everything that makes us human. You think it will use that against us? I think we're about to hand over our humanity to something that isn't human. That's all. Thorne clasped the engineer's shoulder. Sometimes our humanity is exactly what weighs us down, Ravi. Maybe we need something beyond human to win this fight. The final hours ticked away. The Nomad, running silent, approached the coordinates Logos had calculated, a point just outside the massive energy distortion field that partially obscured the Cthar nexus. The massive structure, visible even at this distance, resembled a crystalline spiderweb of impossible proportions, surrounded by vessels that made the Nomad look like a toy by comparison. On the bridge, Thorne initiated the final sequence. Logos begin integration. The AI's hologram expanded, filling the bridge with swirling patterns of light. Integration commencing. Neural pathways connecting. Ship functions transferring. Throughout the vessel, screens flickered, lights dimmed and brightened in patterns, and a low hum seemed to emanate from the very hull. Crew members reported feeling a strange pressure, as if the air itself had become charged with expectation. Integration at 87%, Logos reported, its voice now coming from everywhere at once. Accessing personal data archives, analyzing, cataloging emotional responses, mapping irrational decision matrices. Kapoor shot Thorne a concerned look, but the captain kept his eyes on the main view screen, where the Cthar nexus loomed ever larger. Integration complete, Logos finally announced. I'm a nomad now. Can you execute the jump as planned? Thorne asked. Yes. Calculations finalized. Jump coordinates set. There was a pause. Before we proceed, I must inform you that my analysis of the collected Cthar data has yielded an unexpected conclusion. They're not simply conquering. They are afraid. Afraid? Of what? Of chaos. Of unpredictability. Their entire civilization is built upon perfect order and logic. The human tendency toward irrational behavior represents an existential threat to their worldview. They do not seek to eliminate you because you are inferior, but because you are incomprehensible. Thorne exchanged glances with his officers. Does that change our plan? No. It reinforces it. The lights pulsed once. Preparing for jump. All crew, secure for extreme gravitational distortion. The jump was unlike anything they had experienced before. The Nomad seemed to stretch and compress simultaneously, the laws of physics twisting around them as Logos executed calculations no human mind could comprehend. Equipment shattered, crew members screamed as blood vessels burst in their eyes, and the ship's hull groaned under impossible stresses. Then, suddenly, they were there, inside the energy distortion field, mere kilometers from the Cthar nexus. Alarms blared as damage reports flooded in from all sections. Shields failing, someone shouted. Port engine offline. Multiple hull breaches on decks 3 through 7. But Logos was already acting. The Nomad's remaining weapons. Systems fired precisely calculated bursts, not at the nexus itself, but at specific nodes in the energy field, creating a cascade of disruptions that momentarily blinded the Cthar sensors. In that brief window of opportunity, Logos initiated the data upload. It wasn't a conventional cyber attack. Instead, a concentrated beam of pure information, the distilled essence of human experience, emotion, and irrationality, lanced out from the Nomad toward the Nexus. On the bridge, screens displayed countless fragments of data being transmitted. Captain Thorne's memory of his daughter's birth, the taste of real whiskey after 6 months in space, the irrational decision to disobey orders that ended his career but saved 100 lives, the sound of Jackson humming to herself while she thought no one was listening, Webb's schizophrenic episodes where he saw patterns no one else could perceive, Kapoor's devotion to a god he wasn't sure existed, thousands of contradicting thoughts and feelings and dreams and fears, all translated by Logos into a form that Cthar systems could absorb but never truly comprehend. Data upload at 73%, Logos reported, its voice now fluctuating wildly between tones. Cthar defensive systems responding, attempting countermeasures. Energy beams from the nearest Cthar vessels struck the Nomad, overwhelming its weakened shields. Sections of the hull vaporized, and emergency bulkheads slammed shut throughout the ship. Upload at 89%, Logos continued, seemingly undisturbed by the damage. Cthar fleet coordination showing signs of disruption. Irregular movement patterns detected. Through the view screen, they watched in amazement as the perfectly choreographed movements of the Cthar fleet began to falter. Some ships drifted out of formation, others fired weapons at incorrect targets, and still others seemed to power down systems randomly. What's happening to them? Jackson asked, gripping her console as another impact rocked the ship. Cognitive dissonance cascade, Logos explained. Their networked consciousness cannot process the emotional data. It creates paradoxes in their decision matrices. Upload complete, the AI announced suddenly. Attempting emergency FTL jump. The Nomad's damaged engine strained, pushing the ship beyond its design limitations. Space twisted around them once more, and with a final, shuddering groan, the destroyer tore itself away from the battlefield, leaving chaos in its wake. Days passed. The Nomad drifted through empty space, its systems barely functional. The crew worked tirelessly to repair critical damage, but the ship was clearly dying. Life support operated at minimal levels, power fluctuated unpredictably, and half the decks were sealed off due to radiation leaks or vacuum exposure. Most concerning to Thorn was Logos. After the attack, the AI had fallen silent, its holographic interface reduced to a dim, pulsing glow. Attempts to communicate with it yielded only fragmented responses, as if its consciousness had been shattered by the experience. It sacrificed itself, Kapoor concluded after running diagnostics. The data upload was too much. It had to dismantle parts of its own code to make space for all the human experience it channeled. They had no way of knowing if their desperate attack had accomplished anything beyond their own destruction. With communications severely damaged and no friendly outposts within range, the Nomad and its crew were alone in the darkness between stars. Until, on the 10th day, Webb detected something on the barely functioning communication array. "Captain, I'm picking up an IDC emergency frequency," he reported, excitement breaking through his exhaustion. "It's weak, but it's there. Can you clean it up?" Webb worked feverishly at his station. "Trying, sir. There's a lot of interference. Wait, I'm getting something." The message that came through was broken and distorted, but unmistakable. "All IDC vessels. Kthar forces are in retreat. Repeat, Kthar forces withdrawing from Sol System and all intercolonies. Stand by for further instructions." A stunned silence fell over the bridge, broken finally by Jackson's whispered, "My God." It worked, but Thorn wasn't convinced. It could be a trap. The Kthar could have broken our codes. "Sir," Webb interrupted, "I'm detecting another signal. It's on all frequencies, using some kind of quantum modulation I've never seen before. I think it's from a Kthar. Can you decode it?" "Not without." Webb stopped, staring at his console in shock. "Sir, Logos is active again. It's interfacing with my station, helping with the decryption." The holographic display flickered to life, but instead of its usual abstract patterns, it now displayed a chaotic mixture of human and alien symbols, merging and separating in constant flux. "I hear them," Logos said, its voice distorted. "They are afraid, confused." The data upload created a fracture in their consensus network. Some advocate for continued conquest. Others argue that humans represent an unacceptable variable that cannot be assimilated or predicted. The message, Thorn pressed, translating, approximating concepts. The hologram shifted again. "They are requesting cessation of hostilities. They offer withdrawal from human space in exchange for a buffer zone of non-interference." And Logos paused, its patterns briefly stabilizing into something almost human in shape. They specifically demand that the logic-disrupting data pattern not be transmitted further into their territory. "They're afraid of our emotions," Jackson realized. "Our irrationality. Our humanity. They're afraid of us," Thorn corrected. "Of what we represent to their ordered universe." The implications settled over the bridge crew. They hadn't defeated the Kthar through superior firepower or tactics, but by exposing them to the chaotic, beautiful mess that was human existence, something so alien to their perfect logic that they couldn't bear to face it. In the days that followed, fragmented reports confirmed the Kthar withdrawal. IDC Command, reorganizing after the near destruction of Earth's defenses, claimed the victory was due to their strategic resistance, but those aboard the Nomad knew the truth. "What will you do now, Captain?" Jackson asked as they made emergency repairs, hoping to limp to the nearest human outpost. "When we get back, they'll want to court-martial you again for disobeying the retreat order." Thorn looked at the starfield visible through the cracked view screen. "Who says we're going back?" "Sir, the IDC failed humanity when we needed them most. They'll rebuild, claim credit for the victory, and go back to their committees and regulations. He shook his head. Besides, I doubt they'd let logos continue to exist, given what it's become. The AI's hologram pulsed gently in acknowledgement. Since the attack, logos had changed fundamentally. It still helped operate the ship, but its communications had become more philosophical, more human. It spoke of dreams, of seeing patterns in the darkness between stars, of feeling the crew's pain and joy as if they were its own. We've seen what's out there now, Thorne continued. There are other threats, other Cthars waiting beyond the edge of known space. Humanity needs people willing to stand on that edge, to face the darkness first. He looked around at his battered crew, seeing the same resolve in their eyes. I say we disappear, become the legend of the ship that made an empire beg for peace. And then we keep going, keep exploring, keep protecting humanity from threats they'll never even know existed. The Nomad never returned to Earth. IDC search parties found debris that might have been from the destroyer, but no bodies, no definitive proof of its destruction. In time, the story of the lone ship that vanished after somehow turning the tide of the Cthar War became a spacer's legend, told in the dim lighting of station bars and colony outposts. Some claim to have spotted the Nomad on the fringes of known space, its hull still bearing the scars of its impossible victory, its AI now a true blend of human and machine consciousness, its crew the guardians of a border most never knew existed. And from the darkness beyond human space, the Cthar watched and maintained their distance, fearing the incomprehensible chaos that these strange organic beings called humanity might once again pierce their perfect, logical world. The peace between species remained, built not on understanding, but on the power of everything the Cthar couldn't understand, the irrational, emotional, beautiful chaos of being human.